what did I just watch? I don't even have words. That was seriously bad. I'm trying to find some redeeming thing to say about it, but it was just bad. Let me just start off with by saying that. All right, so I'm not gonna mess around. If it's not clear from the title and the thumbnail at this point, I watched Morbius. I did not like the movie. It was not very good. Unfortunately, I would have to say I would describe it as it suffers from the Venom Let There Be Carnage effect. I mean, that movie was absolutely god awful after Venom was really good. I don't want to get into that whole rant because I can go on for 30 minutes about that. But this movie suffers from a lot of that, where it feels like they had one movie made and then they decided that, oh, this movie's not going to work. So rather than redoing it, they just cut it up and tried to make it the most presentable thing they could and just released the movie, just trying to get it out of the way so we can forget about it as quickly as possible. I don't know, this movie just felt like a complete mess. So I do want to start off with the good stuff because there are a couple of good things about this movie that I did like the action, for example, was pretty cool. The slow motion effects worked really well with the Morbius character because he's flying around doing the vampire stuff. You can see his little wisp going around and he's swiping at people. So a lot of that did work pretty well in my opinion. And overall, I think they did a phenomenal job with how Morbius looked. I thought his overall appearance and demeanor on screen was actually pretty cool at times. There was one scene that I really liked and wished that the entire movie was framed after this scene, and you'll see what I'm talking about if you decide to go see this movie. Morbius is basically looking for a new lab, and that Morbius character we got right there, he was sarcastic and witty, was by far what I wanted to see in this movie. Instead, we got a much more serious toned Morbius that just didn't work, but that Morbius right there was awesome, and I was laughing. I thought it was a really funny moment in the movie, and I wish the rest of the movie kind of fed off of that. But all right, let's jump into the bad stuff. So this movie feels like the ultimate cash grab. I'm just gonna call it flat out. The trailers did lie to us. Now, I don't want to go so far as to say like everything in the trailers was a lie, but the thing that they focused on the most in the marketing was that this was introducing Morbius because some of the multiverse stuff is going on. Ooh, Michael Keaton's in here. Ooh, Spider-Man references. Ooh, we got Venom references, whatever. So Sony did this to themselves. They set up like this was gonna have some sort of multiverse ramifications. And to be fair, in one of the end credit scenes, or actually both the end credit scenes, they kind of set that up, but those completely suck. Nevertheless, the trailers did somewhat lie to us about it. They don't have any of those references in here. They took a lot of them away. There's some minor references to Venom, like a couple little things, but throughout the movie, I didn't see any Spider-Man stuff or anything like that as well. I have to say too that this is gonna be an exaggeration because I probably have seen something worse, but this probably feels like one of the worst cut movies. Like from start to finish, it felt like it was a very choppy movie. There was a lot of stuff missing in my opinion. It felt like this movie was supposed to be over 2 hours at one point, but as it's been delayed for the past 2 years, they probably had to cut it up and realign footage and do various things, and it just made for a choppy mess of a movie. There was little to no character building. None of the characters felt fleshed out at all. The world building was awful. It didn't feel like we were entrenched into the world. It just felt like we were watching like one of the world's longest montages, because at times, rather than taking the time to flesh out a scene, add some expositions, they just turned it into a montage. It just didn't feel right in my opinion. All right, so talking about the characters a little bit, Jared Leto, I don't think he's the worst part of this movie actually. I feel like Sony just did him dirty because, like I said in the beginning, the serious tones of Morbius were not good in my opinion. It just had no interest. It was not interesting. It wasn't like entertaining in the least, but the few moments that we got in the movie where Jared Leto was actually asked to be a little bit more witty and more sarcastic, I thought that was the best version of Morbius, and we should have got way more of that and less of this serious, boring stuff. And I hate to say this, and it's probably an overreaction in my opinion, but I feel like this is Jared Leto's last comic book role, and it's sad because I liked his iteration of Joker in some ways. I felt like he was maybe not particularly 100% right for the role, but I like some elements of that. And then in Morbius, again, I like some of the elements that they did with Morbius. If they would have focused more on the witty and sarcasmness that he was bringing to the table in some of these scenes, it would have been a perfect iteration of Morbius in my opinion. But like I said, I just feel like that they just didn't do him right in this role. Talking about Matt Smith a little bit, I'm just gonna spoil it. He's the villain in this movie. You'll see why he's the villain. He gets some abilities, whatever. You'll see what I'm talking about. And how he gets these abilities are really dumb. It's like done off screen. It just doesn't make any sense. You're like, wait, how did you get these abilities? how did you administer them to yourself? It just didn't make any sense. And the thing is that I like Matt Smith. I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, but I did watch the seasons with Matt Smith involved, and I liked him a lot in those roles, as well as I've seen him in a couple of other things I can't remember off the top of my head. But in this role, he was way too zany, kind of over the top at times. It just didn't really work for his particular character, in my opinion. I'm not even gonna spend a lot of time on the rest of the characters because personally, all of them are pretty forgettable. Like, what the heck happened to Tyrese Gibson in this role? They have a golden opportunity. You have Tyrese Gibson in this movie. He's the comic relief. He's supposed to be funny. He literally, I don't even think he cracked a joke outside of one joke throughout the movie, and he's on screen multiple times. I don't understand why they did this to Tyrese Gibson because, like I said, typically he's the comic relief, and his partner was trying to be the comic relief at times, and he wasn't even all that funny. So I'm like, why don't you make his partner the serious cop and then make Tyrese Gibson the kind of funny and joking cop? That just didn't make any sense to me. Also, Morbius' love interest is boring. She just has no point in this movie, in my opinion, and the way they kind of get together is so rushed and forced. It just felt like that they cut all the interesting stuff with them actually building some dynamic together and just put them together randomly in the movie. That was really it. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but again, I mentioned it, 2 end credit scenes. They both suck, but I feel like you want to watch them just because they do have some ramifications for the future of the MCU. I want to say that with the biggest quotes in the world because I don't know how much is going to have time with the MCU because it doesn't feel like it's going to do very well. But nevertheless, are you going to watch this movie? If you do, good luck because it's not a great movie, but maybe you just want to see it for the heck of it just because you're bored. But anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, we'll see you next time.